So we see in verse 1, the Lamb, Jesus, opening the seventh seal, the last one before the entire scroll can be rolled open and the end of history can be unfolded. So here's the surprise, though. The seventh seal doesn't reveal a judgment in and of itself. It instead reveals reverence before God. Back to verse 1. Read it again with me. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. The initial result of breaking open this seal is silence. The next sound that we hear in heaven will not occur until verse 5, when there is thunder and an earthquake. Silence for half an hour. Why? I mean, what's that all about? And I think there's a couple of reasons that we could point to for this silence. And the first that I think that we can see is that there becomes a dreadful awareness. This, for the angelic hosts and the people around the throne, is an oh no moment. God is about to unleash on the earth. Because now the contract is fully open, and now we can see how far humanity has actually violated the terms of the contract. The hosts of heaven are holding their breaths and waiting to see what will come next. But nothing immediately happens. And so they stand in this dread awe for half an hour. When I was in the fourth grade, I received what we called a pink slip. It was called that because, oddly enough, it was pink. A pink slip was only sent home with you if you did something really awful. Now, I don't remember what I did to earn the pink slip. I'm sure I earned it. I often did stupid things when I was in elementary school. But I did something stupid, and I got sent home with this pink slip. And what you had to do is you had to have your parents read the pink slip, which was basically a note from the principal in triplicate, because back then, of course, you had to use triplicate because you didn't make a Xerox of things. Anyway, and so the pink slip went home, and your parents had to sign it, saying that they had seen it and read it, and then they sent it back with you, and you delivered it back to the principal. It's a very effective form of discipline, I think. I never showed that piece of paper to my parents. Instead, I went down into the basement immediately upon getting home and started working on forging and perfecting my mother's signature, because hers was the easier one to forge, I decided. And then I signed that piece of paper and I turned it back in to the principal the next day. Well, I turned it into the office of the principal the next day and went about my day thinking, how clever am I got away with one this time, didn't I? I was summoned to the principal's office later that afternoon. Did you sign this? Or did somebody else? Because we know it wasn't your mom. Of course, I confessed. But the principal, now seeing that sending home another note to my parents is not going to be an effective form of discipline, picks up the phone and calls my dad at his work. Who is this monster? I knew I was dead. I contemplated running away, I really did, but I didn't. When my father got home that night, he came and visited me in my room, which I had been in ever since I got home from school, in a sort of self-imposed grounding. My dad walked in, and I had been imagining all afternoon the amazing, thunderous anger that he would exhibit, the tirade that he would go on, that he would unleash upon me as soon as he got into my presence. And instead, my dad did something far worse. He walked into the room and he sat on the edge of my bed and said nothing. Oh, that was so much worse. So awful. Not a word was spoken for, I think, a year. Or maybe a half an hour, I don't know. That was far worse than the tirade. It was disappointment, and it was palpable. It weighed on me. And maybe that's what God is doing here in this passage. I need you to get the full weight of my disappointment. And so I'm going to do nothing for a half an hour. But maybe there's another reason also in the silence, and we'll see them as we continue. John says in verse 2, "Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them." Action. Great, we're going to see something happen. And these 7 angels are going to very much figure into the unfurling drama in a huge way, but not yet. Before they can sound their trumpets, John sees an 8th angel. So 7 horns, 8 angels. Verse 3, "And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer. And he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar before the throne." So why is there silence? Because God wants us to see something very important. See, this angel's purpose is set apart. Judgment is coming, but we need to see this angel and what he is doing, what he is bringing. Otherwise, why not just blow the trumpets and start it already? So the reason why we need to see this is because this angel's purpose is actually to show us what our place is in all of this. See, we aren't just being swept along by the whims and mercies of a capricious God like you would have in the Greek pantheon. No, this is a God who does everything intentionally. See, we aren't just the detritus of a God that is all-powerful and all-knowing and doesn't care, like we might see in the Islamic system. No, we play a role as well. Okay. Well, where is it? What's the role that we play? All I see is an angel and a censer. What is a censer anyways? Well, a censer was used in the Old Testament tabernacle first. It was designed by God to serve as the vehicle, the mode of transport of a coal from the altar, the brazen altar, which was out in the courtyard of the tabernacle. In the tabernacle, you had an exterior wall made of canvas, and then you would go through that, and there would be, this is the courtyard of the tabernacle, and there was the brazen altar. It was on fire, and that's where the burnt offerings would be offered up. And from there, they would take a coal from that altar, they would place it into the censer. The censer would be taken into the holy place, which was the interior tent of the tabernacle, and then it would be placed on the altar of incense, which was the last object before the curtain that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies. And the purpose of the incense there was to make sure that there was a pleasing aroma before God. Because inside the Holy of Holies was where God's active presence was, where he resided in the camp of the Israelites during the days of the tabernacle. And so that's what the censer was this bronze tool that was basically used to carry the coal into that incense, into that area where the incense would be offered up. But figuratively, the incense represented the prayers of all of the people as well in the Old Testament. And so here we have in this imagery here in chapter 8 of Revelation, this incense being combined with the prayers of all the saints. And what unfolds for us is this dramatic presentation of the importance of the prayers of all the saints. The prayers of the saints are the pivotal object, really, for what unfolds after this. And what is happening, what God is doing. See, before the sounding of the trumpets that bring forth these judgments of God upon the earth, God wants to make us absolutely certain, wants to make it clear to us, to John, and to us as his readers, that he's not acting without cause. Now, you remember, we talked about it. The 5th seal was the presentation of the martyrs. And he showed us that he was listening to what they had to say. But he also shows us then his mercy and grace in chapter 7 with 144,000, with the multitude being invited and called to become part of his family. And so he's showing us again here why he's justified then, even in the midst of all of that, to carry out his judgment. The silence is there to focus our attention on what he's doing. Because all of the cacophony and all of this noise of the 6th seal, it would be very easy, especially with all the praises that are being offered up to the Lamb and to God in the throne room, and the noise on earth, it would be very easy for us to miss what is happening here. And so God brings about a silence. so that we can focus our attention back. See, God sees everything that's happening. God hears everything that happens, but we don't. We're very limited. And so God creates this space, he creates this time for the host arrayed before him to notice what he already knows, that the prayers of all the saints, it says there in verse 3, have been piling up on the altar.